The Incheon landing, also known as Operation Chromite, stands as one of the most audacious and strategically significant military operations of the Korean War. Orchestrated by General Douglas MacArthur, this amphibious assault took place on September 15, 1950, and played a pivotal role in reversing the tide of the conflict. The success of the Incheon landing not only marked a turning point in the war, but also demonstrated the impact of bold and innovative military strategies. By late August 1950, the situation on the Korean peninsula was dire for United Nations forces. North Korean troops had pushed South Korean and United Nations forces into a small defensive perimeter around the southeastern port city of Pusan. This area, known as the Pusan Perimeter, was under constant threat, and the fall of this last stronghold would likely have led to the complete collapse of South Korea. It was in this context that General MacArthur proposed an ambitious plan to turn the tide of the war through an amphibious landing at Incheon, a port city located near the South Korean capital of Seoul, far behind enemy lines. MacArthur's proposal for the Incheon landing faced considerable skepticism and opposition from other military leaders and strategists. The challenges associated with the operation were immense. Incheon was known for its extreme tidal variations, narrow channels and fortified defenses. The tides at Incheon could vary by as much as 30 feet, creating a narrow window of opportunity for landing troops. Additionally, the city's approaches were heavily mined, and its coastal defenses were well prepared for an amphibious assault. Many of MacArthur's contemporaries considered the operation to be excessively risky and unlikely to succeed. Despite the doubts, MacArthur was resolute in his belief that a successful landing at Incheon could decisively alter the course of the war. He argued that a surprise assault would catch the North Korean forces off guard, disrupt their supply lines, and relieve pressure on the Pusan perimeter. MacArthur's confidence was rooted in his extensive experience with amphibious operations during World War II, particularly his successful campaigns in the Pacific Theater. The planning for Operation Chromite began in earnest in early September 1950. The United Nations Command, with significant contributions from the United States Navy and Marine Corps, assembled a formidable amphibious task force. This force included more than 70,000 troops, 260 naval vessels, and hundreds of aircraft. The operation was meticulously planned to take advantage of the brief tidal windows and to maximize the element of surprise. In the early hours of September 15, 1950, the amphibious assault on Incheon commenced. The operation began with a heavy naval bombardment to soften enemy defenses, followed by waves of landing craft carrying United Nations troops. The first wave of Marines landed on Wolmi-do, a small island guarding the approaches to Incheon. The capture of Wolmi-do was crucial for securing a foothold and clearing a path for the main landing force. Despite fierce resistance, the Marines quickly secured the island, paving the way for the subsequent waves of troops. As the main landing force hit the beaches of Incheon, they encountered intense opposition from well-entrenched North Korean defenders. The narrow tidal windows meant that the landing had to be executed with precision and speed. The initial waves of troops faced withering fire from machine guns and artillery, but their determination and superior training allowed them to establish a beachhead. The use of amphibious vehicles and specialized landing craft proved instrumental in navigating the challenging tidal conditions and ensuring a steady flow of reinforcements. The success of the landing at Incheon was not solely due to the tactical execution but also to the element of surprise. North Korean forces had not anticipated an amphibious assault at such an unlikely location. Their defenses were primarily focused on the Pusan perimeter and the southeastern coast. The sudden appearance of United Nations troops at Incheon created confusion and disarray among the North Korean ranks. The psychological impact of the landing was significant, as it demonstrated the United Nations' ability to strike deep into enemy territory and disrupt their operations. Once the beachhead was secured, United Nations forces rapidly moved to exploit their advantage. The capture of Incheon allowed for the swift deployment of additional troops and equipment. Within days, United Nations forces had pushed inland, recapturing the South Korean capital of Seoul by September 28, 1950. The fall of Seoul was a major blow to the North Korean war effort, as it severed their supply lines and disrupted their command and control structures. The Incheon landing had far-reaching strategic implications. The success of the operation forced North Korean forces to abandon their positions around the Pusan perimeter and retreat northward in disarray. This dramatic shift in momentum allowed United Nations forces to transition from a defensive posture to an offensive one. The recapture of Seoul and the subsequent advances into North Korean territory marked the beginning of a series of successful United Nations offensives that would drive North Korean forces back across the 38th parallel. The impact of the Incheon landing extended beyond the immediate military gains. The operation boosted the morale of United Nations forces and the South Korean population, demonstrating that victory was possible despite the early setbacks. It also underscored the importance of innovation and boldness in military strategy. MacArthur's willingness to take calculated risks and his ability to execute complex operations with precision showcased the value of adaptive and unconventional thinking in warfare. The success of Operation Chromite also had significant geopolitical ramifications. The rapid reversal of fortunes on the Korean peninsula underscored the effectiveness of United Nations collective security efforts. It reinforced the resolve of member states to support South Korea and resist communist expansion. The operation also highlighted the importance of amphibious capabilities and joint operations, influencing military doctrines and strategies in subsequent conflicts. In the broader context of the Cold War, the Incheon landing demonstrated the resolve and capability of the United States and its allies to counter communist aggression. It sent a clear message to both the Soviet Union and China that the United States was willing to commit significant resources and take bold actions to defend its interests and uphold international order. The operation's success also influenced Chinese calculations, contributing to their decision to intervene in the war later in 1950 to prevent the complete collapse of North Korea. Despite its success, the Incheon landing and the subsequent United Nations advance into North Korea also had unintended consequences. The rapid push towards the Yalu River, which marks the border between North Korea and China, alarmed the Chinese leadership. Fearing encirclement and potential threats to their security, China decided to intervene in the conflict. The entry of Chinese forces into the war in late October 1950 marked a significant escalation and led to a prolonged and bloody stalemate that would last until the armistice in 1953. In conclusion, the Incheon landing or Operation Chromite was a game-changer in the Korean War. It was a testament to the power of bold and innovative military strategy, as well as the importance of surprise and precision in executing complex operations. The success of the landing not only reversed the fortunes of United Nations forces, but also had far-reaching implications for the course of the war and the broader geopolitical landscape of the Cold War. General MacArthur's audacious plan, despite facing significant challenges and skepticism, proved to be a masterstroke that demonstrated the impact of decisive leadership and the value of taking calculated risks in warfare.